University, as well as a bill hearing on HB 2705. So that'll be the order of business today. I just wanted to make a quick announcement before we get started. Many of you have asked about when we're going to be doing budget recommendations. We're going to wait and start after turnaround to do budget recommendations. That'll give us ample time to receive the audit about the university spending on DEI, as well as foreign income. And I'm not exactly sure when that's coming out, but I think in the next week and a half. So is there any questions? If not, I'd like to welcome Dr. Tisa Mason to the podium to present about Fort Hays State University's budget, but I got ahead of myself. I'll call you back in a moment, but Brianna Horton from KLRD is going to give us a quick overview of the budget first. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee. Brianna Horton, KLRD. I'm going to give you again the operating budget for Fort Hays State. I apologize when I printed very quickly. There is no back, but these are the numbers, and I do have a summary, and the summary is also in the budget analysis, but I was printing really fast. So the agency requests an operating budget of $601.3 million, including $138.1 million SGF for fiscal year 2025. This is an all funds increase of $6.3 million or 1.1%, including an SGF decrease of $1.8 million or 1.6% above the FY 2024 estimate. And the governor concurs with the agency's request. And just as I noted yesterday, at the top, you can see the FTE for Fort Hays State, and these are just operating expenditures. These do not include capital improvements or any enhancements through the Board of Regents. I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Brianna. If you would, I would like to go over some of those capital improvements, even though it's in KBOR's budget, unified budget request. I just want to make sure these are accurate. Do you need to get, okay. Thank you. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 items listed in the capital improvements. Is that what you have? Okay, and a subtotal, it says here $19,185,825 in the governor's budget recommendation. So that would be Forsyth Library renovation for $15 million. Gross Coliseum HVAC project $47,000. Parking maintenance $3,300,000, and then rehab and repair $838,825. Okay, just wanted to make sure that was we were aligned with everything on that. Do you know when the final BA will be available?
Yes, so I'm currently reviewing after JG's edit, so probably by Friday I can get a copy to the committee of the final draft.
Okay, so just so the committee is aware, the documentation we've been provided is considered in draft form. We haven't got the final version yet. So there's a few grammatical things, a few minor tweaks that had to be made. So we'll look forward to that on Friday. Are there any other questions for Brianna for the Fort Hays State University budget? Okay, if not, we can circle back with you a little bit later, Brianna. And now I guess I would like to welcome back to the podium Dr. Tisa Mason from Fort Hays State University, and welcome back to the committee.
Joining me today is Jenny Rose, our Government Affairs Liaison, Joe Bain, General Counsel, and Wesley Winch, our Vice President for Administration and Finance. Fort Hays State University has transformed the lives of countless individuals and uplifted the rural communities in Western Kansas by focusing on our strengths: affordability, accessibility, and adaptability. Our location in Western Kansas comes with a recognized responsibility to provide ongoing educational opportunities for those who choose to live in our smaller communities, as well as offer support for those who may be considering bringing new businesses and industry to Kansas in rural neighborhoods. Affordability. In times of skyrocketing education costs, we have made it our mission to ensure that Kansans, regardless of their economic circumstances, have an affordable, high-quality educational choice. But affordability is not enough. Accessibility is equally vital to empowering rural communities. Through our innovative online education platforms, our outreach programs, our articulation agreements, such as our Nursing Guaranteed Admissions partnership with the community colleges, and our affiliation with Northwest Tech and North Central Tech, Fort Hays State has extended its reach far, far beyond our physical campus in Hays. By removing geographical and logistical obstacles, we provide access, talent for businesses, and neighbors for rural communities. We thrive on adaptability. With diverse academic programs that reflect the needs of an ever-changing job market, we equip our graduates with the skills and the knowledge necessary to thrive in a competitive world. Let me give you two examples of our adaptability. Our Banking Institute. We created a banking institute recognizing that the banking industry was undergoing a significant transformation and that banks would need to acquire well-prepared loan and compliance officers and other leadership staff. We are advised by a board of bankers, and our institute combines academic rigor with practical training. And through a very innovative partnership, the Kansas Banking Association provides experienced leadership for our institute. Did you know that social work was one of the fastest growing careers in the United States? And the demand for trained social workers increases yearly. In addition to offering our classes on campus and online, we recognize the need to keep practitioners in their local communities and created a cohort program. Cohort students take Fort Hays State University courses at their local community colleges one evening a week, taught by a Fort Hays professor who is also residing in that same community. In 2022, we added a master's degree. The inaugural class of 52 students grew to 147 in 2023 and currently has a waiting list. This year, for the practicum aspect of their education, we placed 96 students in clinics and other social service agencies in 34 Kansas communities. 82% of those were in rural communities. Our focus, job-ready graduates to build the Kansas workforce. What truly sets us apart is our unwavering dedication to the rural communities of Western Kansas. From agriculture and healthcare to business and technology, we offer a diverse range of programs that cater to the industries that drive our region's economic engine. And through the affiliation, we are tripling our value proposition to amplify our success in support of rural students, businesses, and communities. Our strong financial standing, our commitment to access, and unwavering value proposition position us as a catalyst for building the Kansas talent pipeline. Our efficiency includes a low debt ratio, a remarkable growth history that provides a solid foundation for impactful educational initiatives. We are thoughtful about delivering education to meet the needs of Kansas as reflected by state demographics. Since the 1970s, long before the internet revolutionized education, Fort Hays State University took bold steps to cater to adult students. Today, with robust online platform, full semester and shortened academic terms, strategic partnerships, and a focus on aligning with business, we remain committed to meeting the evolving needs of all adult learners in our rapidly changing world. And for more than a decade, we have had an outreach center in Garden City to partner with the Hispanic community, a living and learning community dedicated to help first-generation college students succeed, and more recently, an applied science and leadership degree specifically for military members and veterans. And this program, by the way, awards up to 30 credit hours for military training and experience. We are not just affordable, we deliver value. But don't just take our word for it. The Foundation for the Research on Equal Opportunity set out to study the return on investment of a college degree in the United States. Across the 27 bachelor programs evaluated by the research, every Fort Hays State University provided a positive return on investment with an average weighted ROI of just north $400,000. Our expansive reach also drives our local economy. The 2022 Docking Institute study estimated a total impact of $239 million for Ellis County alone. So I'm now going to reference our legislative handout, which looks like this. And the Kansas Board of Regents approved us to seek legislative funding for 4 initiatives. So as you'll see on the next slide, there are 2 initiatives that made the governor's budget. So we're grateful for the governor's support of the nursing program expansion and our pursuit of training mental health providers in telehealth. The Western Kansas Nursing Workforce Development Initiative is on page 3 of your handout. The goals are to increase the number of nurses admitted into our BSN program by 67%, and to create a regional simulation center to educate healthcare professionals from rural hospitals, flight teams, and faculty from community and technical colleges across Western Kansas. Our licensure pass rate is exceptional. Our Doctorate of Nursing Practice, 100%, our BSN, 95%. And most importantly, our program specializes in rural healthcare. The telehealth certification for mental health providers is an excellent example of adaptability, and it is located on the bottom of page 2 of your handout. We know that more people need access to care, and we also know that telehealth is a great solution. We want to better prepare mental health providers in the practice of telehealth specifically. We believe that as telehealth grows, mental health providers will need specific training on legal issues, ethics, relationship building, and online body language, as well as other practice areas. I would be grateful for your support. Well, we're very thankful for the 2 initiatives in the governor's budget. I would be remiss if I didn't share the other 2 requests. As outlined on page 1 of your handout, we are passionate about delivering alternative credentials, especially in the wake of AI. We know that many workers will need to be upskilled and reskilled. We led online education more than 2 decades ago, and when we started the program, we knew that we needed specialized staff and new technology. The same is true for this initiative. To serve Western Kansas well, we need startup funding to adopt customer technology as simple as Amazon, and staff to work directly with business communities and citizens to fill the skills gap. And the initial investment includes a sunset. Please note the letters of support attached to the back of your handout. Our computer science graduate assistantship initiative can be found on page 5 of your handout. I want to thank you for the past funding we received for our cybersecurity micro internships. Graduate assistantships reimagined is the next step in helping rural businesses. Now, most graduate assistants help teach lower level undergraduate classes, assist with research, or serve the university in other capacities. Instead of focusing on serving the needs of the university, our students would be deployed into the community to assist small business, school districts, nonprofits, and rural communities. And what this initiative is also trying to do is get students who are getting their computer science graduate degree offline to move into our communities and then deliver those services. On the next slide, next slide. There you go. Several organizations have expressed an interest in this program. And finally, the Kansas Board of Regents and the Regional Stabilization Investment requests strongly impact the success of our students. Both requests are very important to us to fuel the success of our students and the workforce talent for Kansas. Fort Hays State University is efficient, relentlessly focused on access, affordability, and adaptability. We make the best of all circumstances. We are vital to the success of our rural communities and are dedicated to building a very strong workforce in Kansas. We value your support and your partnership. I appreciate your time today, and I am happy to answer your questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, President Mason. Appreciate that. We'll start off with questions. Representative Rajas.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, President Mason, always great to have you back here. I won't be too, no, I was told not to, so no, I won't be, there's just a couple of things, and I think congratulations on growth again. +1 or plus whatever is good. We know that there was just the nature of things, so that's good. We saw growth at University of Kansas yesterday, so it's good to have that come back to back. Let's just talk about the other thing that Fort Hays has been very much known for, and that's the relationship with China. You know, that's been a name that's been bandied about quite a bit in the State House this session. So give us an update on the relationship that Fort Hays has with China and how that works with the inner workings at Fort Hays. They're in Hays. Whatever you can share with us.
So when we present our data, you usually see the three what we call modalities: on campus, online, and then China partnerships. It's actually, we're expanding our partnerships to several other countries as well. But most importantly of that, in the partnerships, the majority of the China, they are on campus. And so what happens is our faculty and staff are deployed to live on campus and teach face-to-face classes. They're not online in those two communities. And we probably have, I'd say off the top of my head, about 3,500 students. We've had a decrease in quota from the China government in the last couple of years. So I think that's really important to understand, that it is a face-to-face class, that our faculty that we are hired, and they are not China nationals. They're very basic academic programs. There are no research. We teach English, business, leadership, and health studies. Our student information systems are located outside the US, are moved to Singapore. They have no access to us for our IT systems. It's all separated. We work with a system through Amazon Web Services. We have wrapped up our travel and our IT security policies. We recently engaged in cybersecurity company to bolster our security in all of our areas, including any international endeavors that we are in. I would say China constitutes, if we were to lose that China program, if told us we couldn't do that, we would have to raise our tuition by 12% minimum just to make up for the loss in revenue, which has been driving our affordability for decades. We feel like that, we hope by teaching these students, they have an affinity for the American education, and as they go on to be part of the leadership, that we are friend building as well, and we're doing it in a very safe way.
Mr. Chairman, could you explain just the knowing that relationship, but the financial, does that money come from China? I assume it doesn't come from the students. I'm assuming it's through the university then that you partner with. Is that correct?
So we have a couple other partners, but the main ones are the two programs, CIAS and SNU, and they pay tuition to their institution, and that money then gets transferred over to our institution. So we're only involved in those situations with tuition and fees.
Is that an international group, or is that a Chinese group that you get the check from?
It's from the university.
The university, so has directly from China.
Yes.
I'm just,
Making sure.
those things have been brought up, and so I just want to make sure, as we talk about the broader picture, as we look at countries like that we have a good answer. And so since you're here, that's why I'm curious and want to ask. So if that's, I just want to make sure, so that so we don't speculate. We know. So thank you. One more, right quick. This the graduate assistantships. You list all these. Now, are these folks that have said once that have already participated, like the Waukegan Main Street program, the Rooks County offices, a couple of schools? Do those then pay those students to come as an intern, or is that just part of the students' internship, and then they're placed? Maybe they're from those communities. Is that kind of how that works?
So in vetting and putting together the business plan, we contacted communities to make sure that if we had students, if we got the funding for the graduate assistantships, and those students went offline and moved on campus and lived in our communities, would we have the businesses willing to allow them to come in and work on technology services? So this was just an outreach to say, if this came to fruition, would you host our students? And all of those businesses said, we would love the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. We'll go to Vice Chair Sanders next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just another follow-up on the China thing. So you say you teach all the Chinese students in person?
Yes.
Has it always been that way?
Yes, that's how it started at CS University and then Shenyang Normal University. The founder of CS University came to us. They were looking for a partner, a Western partner. They wanted to make sure that we were teaching in English. All of our classes are in English. You have to have a proficiency to be in our classes, and that the Chinese students were being exposed to Western thought and Western education. That's how the whole thing started.
Okay, and none of your staff or faculty is in China?
The staff and the faculty that teach those courses live at CIOS on campus and at SNU on campus. Sometimes they go off in the community, but they actually are very heroic, in my opinion. They move to this country and they teach, not always in the ideal situation that we sometimes have in our American classrooms. They bring their families there, they raise their families, and they live in these communities to teach our classes to those students.
And is there any limit to the amount of time they spend there, or are they over there years and years, or?
They have, so their curriculum is all central to Fort Hays State. So our English department chair hires all of the faculty with all of the same teaching expectations, whether it is on campus in Hays, online, or over in CIOS. They're supervised, they're evaluated, so they would have to be performing well to continue to live on there. But like all of our faculty, they don't have term limits.
Okay. All right. I also want to have a better understanding of your relationship with the tech schools. You mentioned that in your presentation, so.
So last year we were thrilled to go through the process with starting with the tech schools themselves. So both Northwest Tech and North Central Tech, who are in strong financial and enrollment positions, approached Fort Hays to talk about an affiliation. And so we went through, all of the boards have agreed to this. It is a change of control of governance. So instead of them being governed by their independent advisory boards, they will now go under the Kansas Board of Regents, and their local boards become advisory. We went through the legislative process. We received permission from the legislature. We worked on our operating agreement, which was approved by both boards this past year, as well as the Kansas Board of Regents. The last step now is to be approved by the Higher Learning Commission, our accreditation agency on change of control. They will be at Fort Hays in March, and then we receive their report in June. Assuming and hoping for a yes vote, then the institutions will have a name change to Fort Hays Tech North Central and Fort Hays Tech Northwest. So we've been working on a lot of projects to move forward some of the initiatives and construction management, for example, include a curriculum pathway from carpentry and cabinet making through to a bachelor's degree, cross-training for specialized professional advisors, and really exciting, an AAS degree in engineering to a BS engineering design degree designed as a 3-year degree. We've got so many great initiatives going on. In nursing, we're looking at shared courses and a shared adjunct pool, dual enrollment and an RN to BSN degree, degree completion opportunities for the tech college faculty to meet some HLC qualifications, and shared simulation specialization. We've had just a lot of really good brainstorming going on, how we can make the path simpler for students. We've got a lot of work to do in the technology area, but really making sure that we serve students better and businesses and industry. What that means is that we share this space, and instead of being good partners and still competing, that we are collaborating to work together and break down any competition that exists because of things like enrollment.
So let's say a student takes a 9-month welding course and then they go weld. Are they considered a completer?
I don't know the answer to.
I mean, do you have anything like that? Like, what's the minimum amount of time?
They would start their degree at the tech school. So I don't know what the tech hours are on that off the top of my
Okay.
head.
All right. And then one other thing, and the number came up twice, but the first time you mentioned $400,000. Now I was confused. What was that relative to? It was like on one of the pages of the.
There's a 15, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. Was that for the nursing?
Better note.
There's a nursing, so the nursing building is the 15 million and then the $400,000 in operation. That's in the governor's budget. Is that the number that you're?
No, it was something to do with the amount of money you could earn when you finish.
Oh, that's the ROI. So, in the other packet that I gave you in your office, there's an article on the ROI that an independent agency did. And it shows you.
So that's a lifetime number then?
It's a lifetime number.
All right.
In terms of return on investment
All right.
across all 27 programs that they evaluated.
Okay, very good.
Some
Thank you.
interesting information in that one-page handout.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. I had a question about, so what sets Fort Hays State apart? I think you mentioned maybe before the Appropriations Committee that Fort Hays State hasn't utilized any demolition funds. So what do you guys do that allows you to do that? I mean, is it a history of the way you run your campus and your university, or could you share a little bit more with the committee about that?
So we have been carefully planning our facilities for many decades and saving up our resources, some of which honestly comes from the revenue that we make overseas. And as we renovated and put up buildings, we took buildings down responsibly at the time. It's just been part of our culture in Western Kansas. And so we've not had any need for any demolition funds.
Thank you, Dr. Mason. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Forsyth Library? And I believe it's a $15 million project. Is it just a renovation or?
Yeah, so that number is this fiscal year's number, but that's not the total number. So it is a renovation project. We looked at both the economics of taking it down, building it new, or renovating, and we decided that the responsible thing to do would be renovate. We received $17 million from the federal government to do this renovation. And then we looked at our budget and knew with inflation we needed a little bit more. We were blessed by Senator Moran's office to get us an additional $2 million, which brought it up to $19 million. With inflation, as we continue to plan, we budgeted with some of our internal monies as well to 25 million. And when it hit the street last month, it came in at 27.6 million. Very frustrating. So we're about $3 million short. We have some philanthropy, but we are engaging now in more philanthropy to meet that dollar.
Thank you. So the 3 million short would be if we were to appropriate the 15 million, you're still 3 million short.
No, do you want to?
If you just introduce yourself and.
Representative, my name is Wesley Winch. I'm the Vice President for Administration and Finance. So the 15 million would be next year's spend, and then in a year after that, there'd be more. So the total project's $27.6 million at this point, and we do have a path to funding for that. So we're not asking for money for that. We have $19 million for our Forsyth Library project that is coming from the federal government, and the rest is coming from either philanthropy or internal sources.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand, in our through the Board of Regents, they have $15 million for the Forsyth Library. So you're saying that that is not needed?
The $15 million is for the nursing expansion, I think. And so our nursing expansion is needed. The Stroop Hall nursing expansion is needed.
Correct. Okay. Well, I still just have a draft, and so maybe it's just not 100% correct. So I want to make sure we have accurate information. So thanks for clarifying that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, President Mason, you'd mentioned there's a certain amount of credit you can get for military experience.
30.
Up to 30 credit hours. And so how does that work? Do they have to actually pay for some of those credit hours, or is it, how is that? Is it kind of a discounted?
It's like credit for prior learning. I don't know. I can get you better information on it. I'd rather give you the whole story instead of trying to summon something up in my mind right now. So I will respond to that in writing if that's okay.
Thank you. And does that also apply to people with a career in law enforcement, having any of that? Many of which have gone through some formal training or something like that. I'd be interested to know if you had some info to follow up on that.
We have been doing credit for prior learning for some time, so I'm sure that there's other areas, but that was something specific that we did when we designed a pathway for military with an expedited pathway.
Thank you. My last question has to do with student financial aid. I know the simplified FAFSA has been a total mess for a lot of folks. Tell me a little bit about summer school. How is financial aid applied for someone that wants to attend summer school? Are people eligible for the same funds, or do you have to like set aside a certain amount of dollars for that?
I believe that it's just a per credit hour fee. I'm not really prepared to answer that question either. I know that you do receive financial aid for summer classes. That's clear, but what the formula is that you utilize, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. And I could have asked that question at any university that came. It was just a question I had today. I think it's part of maybe a larger conversation about how financial aid is distributed, because it seems like it follows the academic year.
Does you apply for it as you're going in, and there's all kinds of formulas. Sometimes I know that one of the things that has been difficult in trying to create more flexible short-term courses and different innovation in higher education, we get a lot of struggles and blocks with matching the financial aid with the way the federal government delivers it. But I can get you a much better answer on financial aid as well.
Thank you, President Mason. I'm truly a student. I'm still learning a lot about what you guys do and trying to, as a citizen legislator, really trying to wrap my head around a lot of information. So thank you for your time and visiting with me this summer when you stopped in Salina. My last question has to do with, do you have many admission reps that are bilingual? And
We have two. We've been working the Hispanic market for a very long time. And in fact, back in 2008, I think I came to Fort Hays State University as Vice President of Student Affairs. We had, during our new student orientation with parents and families, we had people translating at that point too. So we've done a lot of work with bilingual. In fact, my greeting is also translated in Spanish on the website, and there are several events we have on campus where we do bilingual, especially if families are involved, so that the parents can understand what they need to know.
thank you for that. Next question, I'll go to Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Doctor, for being here. You mentioned social work, how it's increasing. That's throughout the whole state, of course. And like you say, you were doing some things to try to keep those kids that are graduating in social work in Western Kansas, which I agree with you. I feel the same way about education. We got to make those kids that go into education feel like, hey, this is my home out here, and we need to stay out in Western Kansas and fill our schools up with home bodies. My daughter taught in Allen, Texas, which is right next to Dallas, and they love to hire Kansas kids, especially Western Kansas kids, because they were hard workers and the kind of people you want. So again, all of us need to do as much as we can to keep those kids in the state of Kansas. And I know nurses the same way. I'm impressed with your enrollment on the Chinese deal. My son lives in Los Angeles, and I said to him, I said, why are houses so high? And he said, the Chinese come over and they buy a house, they tear it down, they build another house. They're just trying to get their money out of China. So we want their best to come over, and we hope that they'll stay. I see that with doctors around the state all the time. We have a lot of foreign doctors that are just wonderful people, and they could go home, but they think America's a great place to be. So, we want to make them feel welcome and glad to have them. So thanks for your work, and I'm impressed with what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Next question, we'll go to Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for being late. Madam President, I had another meeting, and when the speaker wants to meet, I say yes. I wanted you to tell me a little bit more about your nursing program, the graduation rates, and why it's important that we give money to you for the nursing department because of its great success.
Mm-hmm. So our DNP pass rate's 100%. Our BSN, our last cohort, came in at 95%. We are doing really well. We get 2 federal grants to work on simulation training in partnership with the community colleges and tech colleges as well. So we can do some upskilling and some training. Our amazing simulation center is also shared with Hays Med, and so they come in for some of their training. We're constantly reaching out and working with the rural communities. What's really impressive about our program is that we require more practicum hours, and a certain amount of them has to be in a rural setting. Because when you become a nurse in a rural setting, you have to be able to deliver a baby, stitch on an arm, and help with a heart attack. There's no specialist potentially there. And so we really specialize in making sure people that are prepared to have that level of responsibility.
Thank you. What exactly, and you probably already told everyone, and I apologize if you have to repeat it. What exactly is the money going towards for the nursing money that you're wanting?
So there's 2 numbers in that budget ask. The 15 million, that is for a 2-story addition onto Stroop Hall. We just went through our accreditation program in nursing and did extremely well. They're really impressed. They're impressed with the rural nursing initiatives as well. As we finished that last summer, we went to the Kansas Board of Nursing. They have quotas for your on-campus cohorts. They increased our quota from 65 to 90. And that's supplement some of our hybrid and online nursing. Right now, we have no problems with filling our spots or for faculty or for students. The 600 or 400,000, is it 600 or 400? I can't remember. That amount of money is to then staff the simulation center in perpetuity for the additional equipment that we'll need for the larger classes. And in fact, right now, in order to prepare for the fall, we're taking 3 classrooms in Stroop and taking down walls to make 2 larger classrooms to accommodate the growth in the number of students immediately. And then hopefully in a couple of years, we'll have that expansion up.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. We'll go to Representative Rogers next.
That was, I want to make sure we had a full explanation of exactly what that was. So the money for the building and then 400 to go to the base to move forward, correct?
Right.
Make sure we understand as we go forward. Just quickly, and I'll ask probably again tomorrow too, on the regional ask. I know the governor did not approve it, but just talk about the importance of that as well as we look at a broader discussion from the 3 regionals.
Well, I'm sure you'll hear tomorrow a lot from President Hush on this as well. But we came together and, you know, our scalability and our ability to raise funds, although is pretty remarkable, we don't have the scalability that the research institutions have. The research institutions, they can get more money faster. They are research institutions, so they get a lot of national grants that have indirect spending, that there's flexibility, that is not our mission, that is not what we have. I think mostly they have athletics, you'd have to ask them, that are separate corporations and they manage the expenses at a regional institution. We have to pay for in our operating budget athletics as well. So those are a couple of the reasons. As you may have read in the Chronicle of Higher Education, as we've had a resurgence to higher ed, gratefully, there are a lot more students going into the research institutions, and the regional institutions enrollment is a little bit more challenging. So that's part of it as well. And our mission is to be stewards of place, is to live in our communities and to serve our communities, both culturally as well as business. And so we need a little help as things start shifting in the higher education environment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. I wanted to go back to the nursing topic. Board of Regents has a Kansas Nurse Educator Scholarship Program. I believe the governor's budget recommendation, if my numbers are correct, is $188,126, and it might be able to provide enough funding for about 33 students. And so what do we need to do? Because I've heard from numerous people that is a huge challenge, is finding people that want to step out of the profession and practicing, but then getting into teaching. So what can we do to help you build that?
Teaching capacity? I know in talking to our department chair, we have not had the problem in finding educators. We do see sometimes a little flip-flop of wanting to be a practitioner in the hospital and then thinking, oh, I think I'll go into higher education, and they'll come over to higher education for a while and they're like, oh, I think I like it better in the hospital environment. I do think everybody with a need for nursing and nursing education needs to continue to train nurse educators, and that's something else that our program does, is provides education for nurse educators.
So is there a pathway right now?
Mhm.
Okay, so and how many, what are you seeing? Are you seeing many that are interested?
It's my understanding that our DNP does a lot of that work. That's the focus of it, the doctorate in nursing practice, is to be administrators and educators.
Okay, thank you for that. There was earlier discussion about the affiliation with the technical colleges and whatnot. I originally started working on a bill this session to make it easier, at least the proposal, that you wouldn't necessarily have to come to the legislature for us to sign off on an affiliation agreement. I decided to put that on hold because I think there needs to be some bigger discussions about that. But how much additional time do you think you guys have spent, and also resources, in coming to Topeka for what is a mutually agreeable thing by both parties? I mean, do you feel it's a hindrance to have to come to the legislature to?
Well, I thought you were going in another direction, and that is it's taken an awful lot of work and effort and time to do this well. It would have been nice not to have to go to the legislature because we're already dealing with individual boards. And really, I think when you think about it, if you've been on a board, especially for several years of a technical college, and you're asked to give up your governance authority to become advisory, that's pretty heroic to think about doing that. The most important thing in this partnership is that we come to the table as true partners. We spent the 3 presidents with a consultant that was paid for by a grant, a good year talking about what our why was, how we do it, what are our rules of engagement, how do we keep each other in check, how do we make sure nobody goes out of alignment, and then creating a very thorough organization around governance steering committee and implementation teams. That all has had the spirit of all one, three institutions and one initiative. So it took some work to go through the process. And if people who didn't have really any reason to say yes or no has the opportunity to stop such a great affiliation, that would be kind of sad, I think.
I appreciate you sharing your experience with that, and I appreciate all the heavy lifting that all the institutions had to do to come to the table to make that happen. And I guess I didn't realize how much you guys had to go through and all the steps and the processes. And I guess from my own perspective, I just thought, well, maybe if we can reduce some of that red tape, maybe eventually we can allow institutions a little bit more flexibility to kind of reposition themselves for the future in a rapidly changing higher ed environment. So
flexibility is always appreciated, as is reduced red tape.
thank you for that. Any other questions from the committee? If not, Dr. and President Mason, we do appreciate your appearance before the committee today.
Thank you for your service.
So that concludes our budget presentations for today, but next we will quickly pivot over to our bill hearing on HB 2705, which would authorize the State Board of Regents to sell and convey certain real property in the city of Manhattan, Riley County, Kansas, on behalf of Kansas State University. Starting off, I'd like to welcome our revisor to the podium to give us an overview of the bill and the bill language.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. What House Bill 2705 would do, it would authorize the Board of Regents to sell on behalf of the Kansas State University some property in the city of the Manhattan. And I believe the property is located at 1930 College Heights Road in Manhattan. The bill contains, I consider, boilerplate language that authorizes the Attorney General to look at the deeds and the conveyance and to be sure everything's in good legal form before the sale would actually go through. So that's boilerplate. There's provisions in the statute that I'm sure you're all sort of familiar with that talks about when an agency sells property, whether there has to be an appraisal. And then if a property is designated as surplus property, there's a provision that you can go through the Department of Administration. And what this bill does is exempt that property from those two things. So they wouldn't have to go through the statutory surplus property statute, and they don't have to go through the statutory appraisal statutes. Now, that doesn't mean they won't get an appraisal. It just means they don't have to follow that statute. The money from the sale, the proceeds from the sale would be deposited in the university's housing system repair, equipment, and improvement fund. And in the last several years, that's been a no limit fund. The bill would be effective on the Kansas Register. And I'd be pleased to stand for questions.
Thank you, Jill. I did send you a few questions before the hearing started, and you did provided me some answers to that. I specifically referenced, I believe, the written testimony by one of the proponents, Dr. Jackson from Kansas State University, had mentioned in his letter the sale or the proceeds from the sale are deposited into an unrestricted use account. And so there are specific, also in the testimony, there are specific of what the project is on campus and how they would use those funds, but it would go into an unrestricted fund. So I don't know if you have any more information about that.
Well, I will say, I believe this is the fund that's contemplated and found in KSA 76-762, which each educational institution, so like the big six, can all have a housing system repair, improvement, and equipment fund. And that fund, by statute, specifically says that the monies in that fund is to be used for repairs, equipment, improvements, and the expansion of the housing system of the university. And then it goes on to further say that cannot be financed from the Housing System Operations Fund. So I think the law contemplates that would be used for the repairs, equipment, and improvement and expansion of the housing system on the university campus.
Okay, so there does seem to be some restriction, but maybe I can ask them once they provide their testimony specifically about that word. And
yes, I think that's an accounting term. So I think, yeah, we just want to know from them how they see that. Yes, sir.
thank you very much. Are there other questions from the committee? Representative Fairchild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if this is necessarily a question for you or not, but I just question why we have to have the Board of Regents do this on their behalf instead of just allowing them to make their own decisions and allowing them to sell their property. I don't know if that's a question you can answer. If you could just answer how long it's been that way, where it's the Board of Regents that's responsible for that.
So I've been here, a long time, but doing budget stuff since '06. And that, that's an interesting question. That's just always how we phrased it. I believe, if we could ask the next person, but I think the Regents holds the property on behalf of. So I don't know for sure that the deed would say it belongs to Kansas State University, but we could ask him that question if the name on the deed is actually Kansas State University or if it's the Board of Regents.
That's a very interesting question and something as I'm learning a little bit about. For example, we get the university budgets, and in the university budget, it'll detail the interest they pay on their debt, but the principal on that debt, those payments come through KBOR. So it's a little confusing when we look at institutions, and I think a lot of that's because of statute. I have visited briefly with KLRD about some of those differences, and I've asked them to work on presenting us maybe some information about what those differences are and working with our revisor to maybe, so we can in future years have a better understanding of why. So are there any other questions? Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is kind of the same as Mr. Fairchild. I have a professor friend that has given his house and several acres to the university, and he gets to live in it until he dies. And then when he dies, the university will sell it. But when they sell it, does it always have to come to the legislator before they can sell it, or because the university does own it. And, I was just wondering if that has to happen on every piece of property they ever own. Same question, really. Thank you.
Yeah, Jill?
Believe the policy has, or the law has always been that if an agency owns it, the agency is really holding it for on behalf of the state. And so the state has an interest in what happens to that. And so, yeah, generally we always want to, I think the thought process is the legislature should be interested in that, involved in it, and to know, even if it's supposed to go to a specific fund of the university or to be used for a specific purpose of the university, that the legislature would want to have knowledge of that and know what is going on with property that's owned by the state of Kansas and the state agencies thereof.
Other questions for the revisor? If not, we thank you for being here, Jill. Thank you for the presentation. Next, I'd like to move on with our proponent testimony. I'd like to welcome Dr. Derek Jackson. He's the Associate Vice President of Community Building and the Director of the Housing and Dining Services at Kansas State University. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Representative Howe and chairpersons, or committee members. So I'm going to summarize if that's allowed. I don't necessarily have to read the bill. This is a property that we acquired through our foundation 11 years ago. There was a fraternity house adjacent to campus about 3 blocks west of the engineering complex. The bank owned it and it was going up for auction. We needed beds 11 years ago. It was another 53 beds that we could activate into our system. Bought it at bank auction for $930,000. We flipped it. Our construction crew on campus and housing and dining flipped it. We occupied it starting in August. Gave us 53 more beds, in particular of honors students. We wanted a collective group of students in that space because it was not contiguous to campus. We wanted to have a little more control and not have a fraternity issue that created the problem. We're today ready to expand our honors program, and there's some legislators that's going to come about an expansion in our strong community, Boyd, Putnam, and Van Zyl. So about 600 beds. Our strong community is going to be called a scholars community, which will include honors. And so that's basically taking the honors house students, those 50 students that live there, moving them into our residence hall system. And now we have this property that we can actually take some revenue from. There are 4 chapters, fraternities and campus that are unhoused. Have expressed interest in owning that property. We think we can sell it, and we're going to take that cash and put it into our reserve funds that's going to pay for a renovation of Moore Hall, another residence hall that needs bathroom updates. And so for us, it's a pretty straightforward managing our monies, our properties, and giving students, the communities, fraternities, sororities, a place to live as well. And that was the intention when I bought the house 11 years ago through the foundation, is eventually go back to those communities as they need. And it's in much better shape than it was when we got it 11 years ago. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you for that. Did it used to be a SIGEP?
Kappa Sig.
Kappa Sig, okay. And so that area is currently zoned for that type of housing?
That's right. That whole block actually is named sort of some Greek community. There's 4 on that block. There's the AGRs, the SIGEPs. Actually now the Wesleys own the Delta Tau Delta house and then the Kappa Sig house. And actually we're showing it, the Kappa Sig's leadership at 4:30 this afternoon. They have expressed interest in it and reacquiring it from us to bring this back into their portfolio.
And so based on maybe the marketplace there, you're envisioning maybe $2.5 million.
That's a great number. We would settle for that. That's good. Okay. It's worth about $2 million plus. We just don't know it's hard to do real estate valuation on a property that is unique, really. And we don't sell fraternity houses very often. So comps aren't very easily grabbed a hold of. And so we know what it's appraised at in the Riley County properties, but it doesn't always show the true value of it. And because there's a number of chapters that are interested in it, I think there's some demand that we can be fair and get a good price out of it.
Thank you. I was just looking at the fiscal note, and that's what they had down. But are you limiting the sale only to fraternity houses, or are there other interested?
There have been some interest expressed from other, I'll say, I won't say developers, because it's not really, Manhattan's growing in its tech and biological sciences and vets kind of stuff. So there have been some laboratories looking at, like the ATO house up on top of the hill, up by the Kansas Department of Ag building, has been exposed, discussed as a potential laboratory space for corporations. So there's a realtor that's representing some corporations that express some possible interest in the Kappa Sig house or honors house. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the true interest is. It's just sort of a maybe. Until you put it up, until we get permission to sell it, we don't really know what this is really going to drive, I think.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, you're keeping it open for
That's right.
all interested parties as long as it fits the zoning and,
That's right.
okay, thank you. Other questions from the committee? All right, well, sounds good, Dr. Jackson. I think you've answered most of the questions then. Do you have any parting comments about anything?
I think it's a good opportunity. As I talk about the Kansas State community, I also oversee the fraternity sorority life community as well. So I think it's a good partnership to bring chapters back onto campus in a housed way. And I think from a strength of our enrollment is projected to go up significantly this fall, that we just need to continue to provide places for students to live in a managed way.
I guess I will ask you a few more questions. My older brother lived at Putnam Hall.
Yep.
His freshman year. So are those three dormitories in that, not real, almost a quad, but are they currently occupied or not?
They are not. Putnam and Van Zyl will be occupied in the fall. Our enrollment's going up. I do a report every Monday for, projections on housing contracts. Monday was 533 year over year increase. Now there's some meld opportunity coming along, but we know we need to occupy Van Zyl and Putnam, and we're going to renovate Boyd. And when you finish Boyd's renovation, we're going to flip it and renovate Putnam, and Van Zyl is going to get summer renovations basically.
Okay, so is the dining facility at Van Zyl, or has that moved elsewhere?
So we have Derby across the street, but the Van Zyl Dining Center, we're going to turn into more of a late night express option with some more versatile using technology where you can do some even things like hot vending and day long, night long opportunities for food service with lower labor. Our issue in our dining program is labor and keeping labor around. And so we're going to use more tech friendly. And this is part of we selected architects last week to help us get that design right. So using things like the Amazon, just walk out, you see it airports. We've been talking with Amazon for a number of years to give us some flexibility with lower labor and give more service to our students.
Okay, so in your testimony, you talked specifically about Moore Hall.
Yes.
You mentioned that, so I wanted to see how
that ties.
Yeah, so is the money that is from the sale of this, that goes into that fund, which was mentioned by our revisor, is it specifically for Moore Hall?
Yeah, so here's what's happening. So our enrollment's growing again. So we had this window of time would have been perfect for renovations when the enrollment dropped with COVID. We had buildings that we couldn't utilize it fully. Would have been ideal time to renovate because then you don't disrupt students. But our projection of enrollment and the real hard dollars coming in on contracts, we know we have an opportunity shortly here to do some quick renovations. So Moore Hall, built in 1964, the bathroom stacks are basically 50 some years old, almost 60 years old. We need to replace those bathrooms, and we have a very narrow window of time. We're going to do half of the building this fall, and we're going to flip it and do the other half of the building probably the next fall. And that cash, I want to do those renovations with cash, because anytime you borrow money against a house you already own, you're kind of getting upside down on it. And so we're going to use cash infusion, both from our revenues in and this cash sale, to actually pay for that renovation. If that makes sense.
Okay, and that's specifically for Moore Hall.
That's right.
Okay, so the scholarship, moving that off from that current location back onto campus, that's a separate.
It's all triangulated. The honors program's growing. We've had this Boyd and Putnam Van Zyl renovation planned for several years, and we've gotten permission to move forward with that through the Board of Regents. The Moore Hall issue is just more of an ongoing need, and we see the window of time based on our enrollment and the projection enrollment to do it right now, basically.
Now, is Smurthwaite, is that an honors?
Yes.
Too, or
yes. That is setting, that's still an existing form. Smurthwaite is a women's scholarship leadership house that we do also own. And it's also needs updates at some point. So we will figure that one out when we get to it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I appreciate your presentation today. Any other questions before I let him go? All right. Well, thank you for
Thank you
being
very
here
much.
today. Appreciate it. Now I'd like to see if there's any neutral testimony. Anybody in the audience want to offer any neutral testimony? If not, we'll go to opponent testimony. Are there any opponents to HB 2705? If not, uh, we'll conclude the bill hearing on HB 2705. Are there any questions? Okay, Representative Fairchild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't looking at the actual, to see what the actual bill number was. I just noticed on this memorandum here, it said 2705 in the subject line and then 2750 down below.
I believe the correct number is HB 2705. So I think it was just a typo. Committee, it's my intention to work this bill tomorrow since we have turnaround deadline coming. It seems fairly transparent what they want to do, and so I don't foresee any amendments, but if you were to have amendments, you need to make sure to visit with the reviser so we can avoid conceptual amendments. A question for Representative.
This is just the only one we have for the universities this year that we know of, just this one for transfer or sale of property that you're aware of.
This is the only one I've been made aware of. That is correct.
A lot of times they wait till the end of the year, and so I didn't know if Senate had any that you were aware of.
I do know the Senate was working on some recommendations today, but I'm not aware of any.
As far as like sales of property, that as far as if we were bundle these or if there was anything else coming.
Yeah, Brianna. Brianna's shaking her head no, she's not aware of any either on the Senate side. So if you're not going to be here tomorrow, please let me know and let's make sure you get a replacement. I want to make sure we have a quorum, and I think we will. Also, I know some of the members that came in late thought I'd reissue my announcement I made at the beginning of the meeting that we're not going to be working on university budget recommendations until after turnaround. And the reason why is we want to make sure that we have time to read and take a good look at the audit, the LPA audit on diversity, equity, and inclusion funding at our public institutions, public universities, as well as foreign contributions, and just have a time to review that as a budget committee. The more information we have, the hopefully better decisions we can make moving forward. And we are working with LPA for them to come before the committee to, share with us, the findings of the audit and if they make any recommendations and things like that. So hopefully, tentatively, we're kind of looking at doing that after turnaround, and we'll get that agenda sent out once it's confirmed. Also, that gives us a little bit of opportunity to dive a little deeper, hopefully, in the budget. Once we get the final budget analysis published, we'll get it all to you guys. So if you guys have things that you're looking at doing in terms of amendments or deletions or things like that, please make sure to work with either the reviser or KLRD. I would like to avoid conceptual amendments. I don't mind a conceptual amendment if it's based off of something you bring to the committee room, right? So if there has to be some minor technical changes to what you bring in, that is fine. But if we can avoid doing the conceptual things, I think we have the time to avoid doing that. So does anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, that concludes the budget, not the budget, the budget recommendations and our bill hearing on HB 2705. Hope you guys have a great day.